My ex called. It was Frankie Collins. Love you, Frankie. Always been a fan. Frankie Collins is in the portal, and he has a list already. We've got six schools that have reached out to Frankie that Frankie has told. I believe this was Sam Kaiser from 24/7 High School Hoops. So shout out to Sam Kaiser. But the list of schools after Frankie Collins includes St. John's, SMU, USC, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Grand Canyon. For those unfamiliar with Frankie and his story to get here, Frankie Collins started at Michigan, left Michigan for Arizona State, left Arizona State for TCU, and is now leaving TCU for his fourth destination in 4 years. Big time athlete at the point guard spot, averaged 11 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, and 2 steals at TCU this year. I will go to my grave believing there's a player in Frankie Collins, Ralph. There's flaws with the player, but I just don't think he's found the right fit yet, and he's running out of years to try and find it. What do you make of Frankie Collins, the player?
I think the Frankie Collins, the player, is found. He was inconsistent at Michigan as a freshman because he was a freshman. Showed some highs. I still think the best version of Frankie Collins we've ever seen was in the second half of that game against Colorado State in the first round of that tournament's freshman year. He was
He
awesome.
won them the game.
Won them the game.
Devontae Jones was out, and Frankie Collins
Won
thrown
them the
into the
game.
fire, wins them a tournament game.
Then he goes to Arizona State, spends 2 years there in a system that I personally thought was perfect for him because Bobby Hurley was going to let him play fast, make mistakes, and have the ball in his hand all the time. He did that for 2 years, went to TCU to get a bag, broke his foot 9 games in. So, yes, there was an opportunity for him to potentially expand his game more. It was largely still the same guy at TCU. And so now we're here. There are opportunities for him because he is an experienced guy who's getting a fifth year who has been around the block and has played a lot of high major basketball. That being said, you're also getting the guy who is a volume, relatively low efficiency, sometimes erratic player. And the fit for that in terms of what Frankie wants and what the teams want may be two different things. Like there is that Venn diagram where it meets in the middle, and I do think it's maybe a portion of these teams where all of that comes together, and I think are more serious contenders than others. But it would not surprise me that all of these teams are kicking the tires given his experience.
Well, it's quite an interesting list too, right? Because you look at Grand Canyon and SMU, schools that are not necessarily blue bloods, obviously not blue bloods, but not teams you expect like they're going to get the biggest names in the portal, but schools that I think are systems where really good guards can thrive at. So
Yep.
I don't hate that. And then you've got USC and Vanderbilt, which have been known to drop a bag in a high major conference. Sometimes they drop bags on really good players. Sometimes they overspend on guys that don't lead to a lot of wins. That's been the Musselman approach. And Byington just had a great year at Vanderbilt, but their starting point guard was AJ Hogard, a guy that I think a lot of people would put in the Frankie Collins realm of you're going to have to pay for this guy. Is it really a winner? Is it a guy you can lead with? Vanderbilt had a good year, but AJ Hogard was on the bench if their NCAA tournament game at the end. I don't know. And then you've got Kentucky and St. John's who have national title aspirations with Hall of Fame coaches or an up and coming stud coach. And
Yep.
Kentucky wants Donovan Dent right now. St. John's, I don't know what they're going to do with the guard spot, but like, is Frankie Collins good enough for Kentucky or St. John's to you?
No, just to be frank, no. I think the conversation, like with the Kentucky or St. John's, is the same conversation Kentucky had probably with Kirk Risa last year, who had similar kind of erratic concerns. Do you want to win? How badly do you want to win? Because you can come here and win, but you're probably going to come off the bench and have a smaller role. How badly do you want to win? Kirk Risa said, "Fine with me. The system seems fun. I'll come off the bench. I'll play my 20 minutes. I'll shoot. I'll play make for others. We'll have some fun." And his got cut short due to injury, unfortunately. But I think that's the pitch from those two for Frankie Collins. I don't think either Kentucky or St. John's is saying, "Hey, come here, be our starting point guard who plays 30 to 35 minutes a night and do your thing."
Yeah, okay. I think that's a fair interpretation. Here's my interpretation. I don't think Kentucky has actually recruited Frankie Collins. I think there are some schools that are being put on lists from agents or something. Like sometimes there's misinformation being distributed here. I can't follow why Frankie Collins would be recruited by Kentucky.
If Kentucky misses on their five top targets, then maybe like, hey, we're keeping this guy on the back burner, and then you become our guy if we're still looking for somebody in late May.
Yeah, I think respectfully to Frankie, who again I believe in an empty chair, I think helps Kentucky with a Caden Lewis and Jasper Johnson more than Frankie Collins does. And when you make the Kerr
Yep.
Kriisa comp, it makes sense because Kerr also started at like a powerhouse Arizona program, left for a year to go get a bag at West Virginia. It sucked, and then came back like, oh, I'm just so happy to put that uniform on. Frankie Collins doesn't strike me as that guy. I mean, he left Michigan loudly like I'm better than this. I need my minutes. And
Right.
I can't imagine that's a guy you want in the locker room if you're Mark Pope. Maybe Frankie's matured. I don't know. I will say this. I think St. John's wants him. I think this is a guy that at least makes sense in the Rick Pitino archetype of like, hey, we're going to be tenacious defensively because he's a huge steals guy. He's a guy
Hmm.
that can be an impact defender. He is big. He's an athlete. Like I could see him in the St. John's system having success. He's just right along the fringe of like, are you good enough to be Davion Smith? Are you not? I don't know.
I think St. John's would not be the worst thing for him. I think St. John's wants more, which is why I put them in the same kind of tier.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Gun to your head. Where does he go? Early prediction, future cast, Brian Ralph. Where should Frankie Collins end up?
I think he ends up at USC or SMU.
Okay.
He feels like your prototypical Grand Canyon guy who's been at mid major at the high major level, transfers down and becomes a star who this time next year, early March, we're like, hey, Grand Canyon, really good team in the WAC. They got a lot of power conference experience. Frankie Collins is running the show there. He's been really good in the WAC. That feels like a script that's perfectly played out. I don't think Frankie Collins will go the mid major route, particularly when he has so many other high major options. I think SMU with Andy Enfield is going to give him the keys and say, you go be Frankie Collins. USC with Musselman needs a more quote unquote traditional point guard. And he's okay with guys who are a little bit more erratic offensively if they bring the intensity and the defense, which Frankie Collins will. My guess is it's probably one of those two. The decision between those two is going to come down to what Frankie wants.
As a Frankie Collins supporter, I hope he ends up at St. John's and I hope he crushes. And I would trust Rick Pitino more than any other coach on this list to actually get him there. I think it could happen. I will put my pick behind Vanderbilt because
Okay.
this list release reminds me so much of the Hogard list release, where like I think last year he had Florida, Oregon, and Vanderbilt on the list, and it was kind of just like Todd Golden wants this dude, like whoa, and then he ends up at Vandy. Had a great year, by the way, but like I think that's where this is headed. Collins could work. There's a 1-for-1. Hey, come be what Hogard was for us. Start, play big minutes. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, you're on the bench. And I trust Byington is a good coach. He can make that work. That feels like St. John's feels like you're stretching upward. Grand Canyon feels like you're stretching downward.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt feels like the perfect fit to me.
My only thing with Vanderbilt, and they have reached out to him, if we're believing this list, but given the fact that Hogard was on the bench in the NCAA tournament and a lot of the maybe key moments of games, does Byington want to go through that again?
Yeah, true. Like that guy just wasn't good enough. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point too. All
I
right.
will say
Well,
too, like Hogard, I think came from a more stable program, Michigan State, and did make a lot of huge plays late. Like he was oftentimes the big shot guy for Vandy because he had shown some of that in Michigan State. Frankie Collins has not shown that.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's not the perfect 1-for-1 comp wise, but impact wise, I can see it. We'll see. I'm rooting for Frankie. I really am. I know a lot of times people turn on players that left them, but like, I don't know. I've always just found him a fun player that I think came into Michigan at the worst time and kind of more than anybody else saw the writing on the wall and was like, let me get out of here before this ruins my career. And I wish he would have landed in a comfier landing spot than the arms of Bobby Hurley. And this injury was brutal. He was good at the beginning of the season before the injury. So, Frankie, I'm rooting for you, my friend. If this makes its way to you, I hope you get the perfect landing spot.
I love that your all-time Michigan backcourt is Frankie Collins and Doug McDaniel.
Those are my guys, man. I'm never gonna not believe in those guys. Good Lord, I have a problem.
It is March, and that means that March Madness is upon us. And if you are looking for a place to play, Underdog Fantasy has you covered. Sign up and deposit using code SLEEPERS, that's code SLEEPERS, to receive up to $1,000 in bonus credit plus a free pick. Head over to Underdog Fantasy today and use promo code SLEEPERS to take advantage of this amazing offer.